It's cool to see people like seeking out a designer specifically to do like the title treatments, because that can sometimes easily just be like a director's like afterthought that they just throw like Futura on there or something. It is the most
frustrating thing in the world to see some beautifully directed cinematic thing. Yeah. And the credits or the opening is in like Impact or something. Yeah. You know, it kills me.
Do you work like freelance mainly, right? So are you working from your house usually?
Yeah.
Do you find it hard to like kind of separate it now that it's all just built into there, like when you're working and when you're not working?
Yeah, incredibly. Yeah. Yeah, I've tried to like, I struggle with it still, and I've been doing this for like a year, and like I feel like at the beginning I was good about being structured and coming off of like a 9-to-5, like knowing what structure is. Yeah. But the beauty of freelance is getting to do kind of what feels right for you.
Right.
But there is this like weird lack of separation when you work in your own living space. That can be challenging. I just try and get out as much as I can and you know, do things outside, like remember that there's nature and like go on hikes, stuff like that.
Yeah, because even going outside sometimes won't like recharge you if it's like going into like traffic or some shit that's just as like kind of chaotic. I found that the separation thing kind of is weird when like even small things, like you don't notice it right away, but it starts to like accumulate, kind of like a burnout. Like, you know, you'll get like an email or something at like midnight and I'll just think like, fuck it, like I'll just do this thing real quick or like respond, because like not because I think that they like deserve to have my time at midnight, but I don't want to think about it all night and then do it in the morning.
I'm the same way.
And now I opened up the access to me like almost 24/7.
Exactly. Yeah, I do the exact same thing.
It's like, I guess that's I always say I'm kind of like the opposite of procrastinator. Like I stress about shit right away, even though I have a ton of time to do it. Right when it happens, I'm like, oh fuck, we got to get this done.
Yeah.
Do you had some questions here I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
You went to Otis, right?
Yeah.
What was that kind of experience like?
That was it's funny, like the first, so like I'm from the East Coast originally, and very small town, and the second that I could leave, I needed to. And so I just had this like romantic idea of Los Angeles and California, and so I found Otis just through like online stuff, and I toured a bunch of schools, not a bunch, but like maybe 3 or 4.
Out here?
No, on the East Coast, like like VCU in Richmond and NYU in New York, and nothing really clicked for me. And I did these like portfolio days, kind of things where a bunch of, I guess like staff members from a school will come to like one space, and then you bring your work and show what you have. And that's cool. I hated it. I mean, it was terrifying. And I had a school straight up be like, we're not really liking this. Like, it's too abstract. It's too weird, the stuff I had at the time. And they were like, we wanted more, you know, we're looking for more still life kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, no thanks. Like, you know, I'm not interested in that. Yeah. But I remember I talked to somebody from Otis, and they were like the first people who liked my stuff and liked my portfolio. And it was really encouraging. And I think it was the only school I applied to, and I got in. And moving from the East Coast out here for school was terrifying. The first 2 years were extremely difficult for me. But I would say junior and senior year is when I started to like really appreciate the school and the program and all of the resources they really had for us. And I really credit, I know like there's a whole debate of like, is design school worth it? Is it, you know, conducive to good work? And I think it's like really just some people are meant for school, some people aren't. And I feel like I'm in no position to tell people what to do. It's really just like my own experience I can speak on. And I mean, like that school changed my life, and I credit the amazing teachers I had who, like, it took me a while to appreciate it, but I was like, oh yeah, they're working artists working in their fields, and they take time out of their practice to come teach us. And so, yeah, I had some really amazing teachers who like shaped my eye and the things that I'm interested in. And so, yeah, I would say I had a really mixed experience. The first 2 years were just hard, just like emotionally, like moving away. And I had no family, no friends. I was completely starting over. And that was just scary. But I did it because I like knew I had to or something, even though it was terrifying. But,
did you live on the west side over there when you were going there?
Yeah. So the school is quite literally next to LAX.
Yeah.
Like, the views from the windows are like the runways with planes and shit. And so I lived in an apartment complex kind of right next to the school where I could walk to school. The first year, I had a horrible roommate situation and had to get out of there. So the rest of my time at Otis, I lived in Culver City, was able to get a car, and like
that's still pretty close.
Yeah. It was only like 15 minutes. But yeah.
I was thinking of like going over there to when they had that like portfolio thing recently, just to like scope it out. And I was like, why is this place so hard to get to? It's like, it was like the middle of the day, and it was like, it's going to be 50 minutes to get there. And I was like, oh shit, I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah. I went there for the first time recently, since I graduated. So that would have been like 3 years ago. I haven't been there in 3 years. And they had this, maybe it was the same thing you're talking about, but it was like the senior showcase kind of thing.
I think it might have been that.
Was it that? Yeah. I went to that because one of my good friends, who we did the design program together, and we're like best friends. And she was like, she works for Infoco, they design books and stuff. And she was like begging me to come because they had set up a table there. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, why would I go? Like,
it's like PTSD.
I know, seriously. But I was like, why not? I'll just do it. And got to see some old teachers that it was like a really weird feeling being back there. But it was funny. Yeah.
I think you mentioned like the debate around like school, and I went to school and I liked it, and like I could say all these cool things, and like there's so many like asterisks though, and like, but if you're this, don't do this, or like if you're in this situation, it's probably not for you, or like it's really hard like to give a concrete answer. And when people ask me that stuff online, like I would need to like interview them and be like, all right, I think you should go, or you shouldn't. It's not just like, because sometimes people ask me and it feels like very manic, like I don't know what to do, like should I go to school? And I'm like, I don't know what to do either. So like don't ask me for advice. But I think the school you went to, like if you're gonna go anywhere and you have the means to like go to a school like that, I feel like you can make the most argument for a school like Otis or like RISD or something like that, because there's no real like, oh, well, what if I went to like a really nice school or a better school? That's pretty like up there. Whereas like I went to like a public university, and I feel like the most value I got out of that wasn't even just the design stuff. It was like the people and the other classes, and like just the more like new life experiences that translated into maybe like my practice. But with yours, it's like you're in design. Like it's very extreme, I guess, in a sense.
Totally. And I considered the public university thing at first. And once I was able to tour some campuses, it just felt really like not for me. It was too big. It was too many people. It was too overwhelming. Like, I like how small Otis is. I mean, the people in my class, like in the design program, it was like 30 kids.
Wow.
And it was, and I mean, that has its pros and cons too, because I like it because you do feel like you're getting more attention and more like of a caretaking. There's more of a caretaking aspect where it feels like this tiny little family, because it's such an intimate setting and an intimate amount of people. Whereas in university, if it's a class of like 300, like I don't know how much you would get out of that.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, they were like very strict with attendance and tardiness and like things like that because of how small the school was, and they could pay attention to those things.
Yeah, they knew if you weren't there.
Type of thing. But that was never an issue for me. But a lot of other kids, would struggle with that. But
our my like program was pretty like, I guess, tight like that. The specific like, there was a few different classes or like grades or whatever of like people doing design, and like sometimes there'd be like some crossover of someone from the previous one doing one of your classes or whatever, and it was only probably ever like 30 or 40 as well. But the actual like GE and the earlier stuff where you're doing like more just like communication or like journal, like the writing type shit that's like required, those were sometimes like in those big lecture halls where you're sitting in like it's like a movie theater almost, like art history and like people are just there like still drunk and shit and like just sitting there, and it's like that's when you get more of the people that I'm like, Dad, like why are you even like, you don't have to be here, what are you doing, like what's the point of like, there's a lot of like high school-esque vibes in like early college like days. I'll even say like I experienced the same thing because I noticed like, I mean, I feel so grateful to my family who sacrificed a lot to like put me into that school, because I didn't know it at the time, but it is private and it's expensive. And I didn't even know that when I was going into it, that it was like this private thing, but I was like so grateful to be there. And I knew how much I owed my mom and my family, like to like really give it everything I could. And so I did. And I'm grateful I did that. But I noticed within my program and within my classmates, like there was a lot of that kind of like not doing assignments and not even listening to these teachers who are like trying to like, form us into these artists that we want to be. And I noticed a lot of people kind of like not caring, and that was really surprising to me, because I just wanted to like shake them and be like, we're so lucky to be here, like like we're surrounded by all of this art and knowledge, and it was frustrating to me like to see other people not care the way I did. And so I was really lucky that I found two friends. It's always been so hard for me to make friends in general, but in college, I was able to make two friends, which doesn't sound like a lot, but they meant the world to me because we cared the same amount. We did everything together, critiquing each other, and like really were like in it together. And that I was really lucky to find them. And but yeah, I noticed a lot of people just kind of acting just like it was high school, like it was any other school. Like, I don't know if that's like an LA thing. There was a lot of LA natives there. Like, I think it's just like people suck. A lot of people. Like,
no
matter where you are. I was in NorCal and they felt just as like privileged or whatever. And it's not like LA at all, you know? But I don't know. Like I found that too. I kind of got with like a few people that were cool, because we would do like, especially in the early part when people were nervous, and I feel like the professor didn't do a good enough job of fostering like this environment to like force you to critique and stuff, because we do critique sometimes and people just wouldn't say stuff like when you're up there, and then it's like, all right, like next person, and it's like, well, that didn't help anything. Like I'm not scared, like tell me something. And then the critiques were so far and few in between. When you said something like criticism, it felt like, oh, why are you being a dick? Like, because no one said anything, and now you're like, that's pretty, like, why'd you do that there? So like what you said about the professors being like working artists and maybe like guest lecturers and stuff like that feels more like, I guess not to sound like rude to the other people, but like you take their word like more serious. Some of my professors, I was like, they just are here. I don't think they care. But when they're like someone that is like an opportunity to even like hear them like kind of talk, that seems more like you take their word more serious, I guess. Yeah.
I think that's maybe true. And But, you know, I also had some professors that really didn't do anything for me. Like, but there are those really special ones that really like stick with you. Like, and I mean, I think everybody has those teachers, especially from like elementary or middle. Like, there's always like that one that you feel really cared about you. Right. And in college, I had this incredible teacher, Juliet Belloc, and she was my type teacher. Oh, cool. And she was one of the greatest teachers I've ever had. And I credit her for like my love of typography and like the way that we would talk about type and the way she taught us to critique type and like what to look for and how to push yourself and kind of like that, finding the balance between like structure and then like doing something weird, like, you know, which is still like how I approach a lot of my stuff is like, I love structure, but I also like to fuck it up a little bit. Right. And yeah. And so I don't know, I'm just super
Is that when you kind of like the style you work in now? Yeah, it's definitely like heavy typography. And I see you post a lot of the like posters and like the title treatments and stuff. And from that like experience at the school, from then on, were you kind of like mainly working in that style, like a lot of typography stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like typography has always been my favorite thing and the thing that I gravitate towards the most. I feel like it's so hard to say what my style even is because I'm so in it. Like, I could not even tell you, like, right. But I always have people being like, I saw this and I knew it was yours. And I'm like, awesome. Like, I don't know. Like
someone told me someone else tells you like your style, you don't really identify it yourself.
Right. But I would say typography is like kind of at the, core maybe of what I like to do. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in, I'm actually thinking now of like maybe exploring more photographic stuff and more experimental, abstract, visual imagery. And but I would say type is.
Have you found that people like since you do a lot of that and it's been kind of like in your portfolio, when people are coming to you, they're expecting like that type of stuff, like some more like maybe experimental typography or like title treatments? Do you find they reach out to you like for that specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I do more posters than anything, right? Which is funny. But yeah, it's either like posters or like I've been doing a lot of titles lately.
Yeah, those are cool.
Things seem to come in waves. Like once, sometimes I'll be like on a merch wave where I'll be doing merch for like 3 different people, or sometimes it's like titles for 3 different people, and I'm like, why does everybody want titles right now?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people definitely do come for me for the type stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Which I'm super happy with. So
it's cool to see people like seeking out a designer specifically to do like the title treatments, because that can sometimes easily just be like a director's like afterthought that they just throw like Futura on there or something. It is the most
frustrating thing in the world to see some beautifully directed cinematic thing. Yeah. And the credits or the opening is in like Impact or something. Yeah. You know, it kills me. I'm like, yeah, I fully agree. Yeah.
That stuff's cool. Do you work like when you're working on something like that? Is it more collaborative, or are they done with the like filming of it usually?
You mean like the video?
Yeah, video stuff.
Yeah. Normally, I'll sort of get the latest cuts of a video. It's never really like the finished product. They might still need to do coloring or extra editing and stuff like that. I mean, I always prefer to see the finished thing if I can, because sometimes they'll be like, oh, actually we're going to take this out, and then the type has to move, and you know, but yeah, normally it's I just get the most recent sort of draft. Yeah.
I saw that one you did recently where it was like painted. When you do stuff like that, do you ever run into problems if they want like changes or revisions? You pretty much have to start over since it was more analog.
Yeah. I think that's something that actually a lot of people don't know that I work with. I actually had to explain it to a client a couple weeks ago because I was on it was a very difficult process, this thing I was doing, and I had to explain like, hey, just so you guys know, like every time you ask for an edit, I'm doing all of this by hand, and I print everything and rescan everything. Like it's not digital. So just giving you a heads up if, these edits take longer than you think. But it's just something I've accepted because like I prefer to do things by hand when I can, because it's an opportunity for me to get off the screen, which, I have such a love-hate relationship with the computer.
Same.
And so, yeah, anytime I do anything by hand, it's like, I'm accepting the fact that there may be edits and I may have to redo this. And I just like learn to be okay with it.
I found that lately, like in some of the stuff I've been doing, like I almost never don't use the printer and scanner in some way of the process, even if the poster is entirely, digitally laid out. I can't help but just at least print it and scan it back in just for like texture, you know? Because like once you work in that like mindset, it feels so too clean. Everything feels too clean if you don't do it that way. And like it looks like it's for like a website or something, because the colors is so crisp and flat. And I found working in that way sometimes with clients, to the advantage is like sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, like you said, just so you know, this was like a collage I was working on for someone, and I was like, I'm gonna have to kind of like redo this in a sense. And then they were like, actually it's all good. And I was like, okay, so it wasn't that important of a change. So almost I feel like when they have the opportunity, it's like there's always this vibe sometimes where it's like, let's just see it. We know we don't want to change it, but like, can we just see it real quick? And you're like,
people love to just see stuff, don't they? And
then the other person has to come in and see it, well, we didn't show like the marketing lady, so like she just wants to see it. And I'm like, oh fuck.
Of course.
What do you think out of the stuff you've done, like with posters, album art, titles, like what's your favorite kind of medium or project to work on?
Right now, I'm really interested in doing more album packaging stuff. Just because that is like the most, that's the thing I emotionally connect to out of anything, because just being a kid, I remember every weekend that I could, like, there was nothing going on in my town. It was so small. And so every weekend I would beg my parents to take me to Target, and they would just like drop me off, and I would just like stay in the CD aisles and peruse everything and buy stuff. I didn't even know who the artist was, but I was just looking at the covers, and the feeling, the excitement of taking it home and digging through the booklets and the liner notes and the photos and the track lists, like that was like candy to me, and that really has stuck with me my entire life, and so that is like what I would love to do more. I feel like I've only done maybe a couple, like 3 maybe album,
like 3 physical ones, huh?
And I would love to do more of that. I was thinking the other day, I was like, if I never have to make a logo ever again, I think I would be totally fine. That's like maybe my least favorite thing to do.
It's funny because you get like jaded, like that's all I wanted to do when I was in design, like, or in school for design. And I love like a lot of the stuff I do that I don't post like on Instagram is like brand identity stuff, just because I feel like it's not very exciting to like as like a carousel or whatever. It's just like a logo in this void. Totally. But I do a lot of that, and that stuff pays very well, and it's a lot easier to justify high price in that world versus like a poster or a art direction type stuff, even though that's more fun. So that's kind of the trade-off. But I agree, I'm starting to be like, do I even want it? Like something about like logos, it's just like the client, it's always very stressful rather than like, and the creativity is like entirely different. Feels a lot more I don't know, like logical or whatever, or like methodical, especially like working with like more corporate stuff. Like it's cool. And I can definitely like code switch into that world and be like explaining this like crazy, you know, like symbolic meaning behind like this little icon or whatever. Right. But I would much rather be creating like a flyer for a rave or some shit every day.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like
I'm with you on that.
A trade-off. But have you found like, cause you work in like a lot of music stuff and some of the stuff you've done is like fairly big, like clients and things. And I found though, not working with that big of people in that world yet, that with posters and stuff like that, are you still able to justify like a price for yourself that's worth it? Because I found a lot of times that stuff, there's not a lot of like budget to be behind it.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like the stuff I've done for the bigger clients, I don't know if I've done a lot of posters for the bigger clients. It's been more like album or title stuff. Although I did do a poster for a big client the last maybe like 2 weeks ago, and it was a really challenging process, and I felt like they just really weren't interested in my point of view, or they kind of just wanted me to be the machine to create this thing for them. And that happens. But there were so many edits and so many changes and so many like requests for my time, and I was waking up extremely early to just like do this thing because they needed it, and I was feeling really just like bad like the whole time,
like underappreciated. Maybe.
And so I did the thing and I tallied up, you know, how many hours spent, and thought I put together like a decent, like reasonable number, and then they came to me with their budget and it was like half of what I was, and I was like, there's no way, like there's no way. Because you really have to, it's respect for yourself and respect for your work and your time and your process to like get paid what you're worth. And in the beginning of freelancing, I for sure did a lot of stuff for like not a lot of money just to like get a project, you know?
Yeah.
Which is kind of what you have to do, I feel like, when you start freelancing, is giving up a lot of your self to other people, but doing it in a way where you still have some kind of control, maybe. But yeah, I feel like in the beginning there was a lot of sacrificing in terms of like money and budget and stuff like that. But at this point, I do feel like more confident in what I'm doing, to where and I'll even have friends to like encourage me and be like, stand up for yourself. Like, because that is something I've had trouble with my whole life, is like standing up for myself in any capacity. And so freelancing is weirdly teaching me life lessons all of the time. And that's kind of the gift of like working with different people all of the time, because you get a different lesson out of each project. And even the really difficult ones, I still learn something from them. I still try and get something valuable out of them, even if it like physically exhausted me or something, you know. Just because I have to like be able to be positive and move on, so I can like start the next project with like a clear mind, and know that, and have and it also like breeds like a self confidence when you know that you stood up for yourself and you know that you asked for what you're worth. And because if you didn't do those things, you might feel bad about yourself. And I just every day I'm trying not to feel bad about myself. So,
I've been thinking too, like, if you're not like, if a project is getting turned down, or how do I say this? Like, if you're not getting denied a project by price every once in a while, I don't think you're charging enough, because that means everyone's like, we have way more than that. Like, sure. Yeah. And I found that, like, you know, I agree that when I was younger, I did stuff that was like, you know, very close to like basically like nothing, you know, or slavery type shit. It's just like, and it's hard because I always speak about how don't do that. Like, tell everyone not to do that, and like respect your time, and like, you know, get what you're worth, and all this like stuff that we like to say. But it's like, it's weird because I almost sometimes think like, do you have to do that thing first to know that, to then feel that way? Or are you able to from the beginning, like be responsible. And it's kind of weird because sometimes then you look back too, it's like, but some of that stuff wasn't even worth that much either because I was barely learning. So it's like, I try to look at projects now, like if they satisfy like 2 of these 3 things, I'm happy. So it's like pays well, I learn something like super valuable, or I meet people and make like a cool connection. Yeah.
There's like a checklist or something. Yeah.
Because sometimes the budget's not there, but like it's this cool like event or something, and like I get to work with some cool people on it, and it's like, sure, this sounds fun. When those start to get like gnarly though is when you get resentful when the pay was bad and they want like all these revisions and you're like, I was like helping you, you know, what happened here?
Yeah.
But I don't know. You seem to have kind of figured that out then, because I've noticed some people like have told me it's hard to justify like getting paid well for stuff that's more like one-off like that, like just an event flyer or like a non-packaged like album art or something.
Right.
But I saw the one you did recently was cool that had like the back of it looked like each song was almost like a logo. Who was that for?
Alexander 23.
Okay, yeah. That one was cool.
Thank you.
That stuff. I've been wanting to get into the physical too, because it seems so much more rewarding to get like make like a gatefold or something and actually get it like made and hold it and everything.
I'm like very sensitive and emotional, like, and so the other day I was at a record store just kind of because that's what I like to do to get inspired before a project. I'll spend like an hour and a half just looking at stuff to kind of like rev me up.
Like real life Pinterest.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so tired of like being on my computer. I'm like trying to do anything to get out of the house. But I was going through the record store and they were selling the record I did in there, and I didn't know that they were. And I was like having a moment. I was like getting emotional because there is like something, again, like back to like what I was saying, like when I was a kid and like going through the aisles and how much time I would spend in the CD aisles, and then being where I am now and like seeing it absolutely on accident. It was like a really special moment, and I was just like, wow, this is tight. Like I did this. Like, you know,
that's cool.
Yeah.
And some guy just is like, excuse me, and like, grabs the thing. They're not, you're all like crying right there.
I'm like passing them out. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I've had that feeling before too with like, I used to work like in-house at this company. So I called like Art of Sport. So I did like a lot of the packaging, which was like, body stuff and like deodorant and shit like that. And it's not very like glamorous or cool in its own right. But like, I remember just going to Target and it's all like on the stack on like one of those little like dedicated like setups or whatever.
Yeah.
And like it had some friends like send pictures of it, and I was like, oh damn, it is pretty cool. It's like real life.
It's a different feeling. Yeah.
Stuff on the screen is very like non-romantic, you know? And it's just like, it could be the coolest thing ever, but like as an Instagram post or like as a digital image, it doesn't have the same impact. Like even seeing a flyer printed out and put on like a piece, like one of those wood poles is like nicer than seeing it scanned in or whatever.
Yeah. And I think this is like the reason like that I am so physical with my work is because of how important physicality is to me.
Yeah.
Printing things out, doing type by hand, painted letters, like all of this stuff that is so time consuming. And I know, like, and I prefer to work very slowly. There's no worse feeling than being rushed. So I work all the time, and but I'm like okay with that. And I think there's something about working with your hands that feels different, and holding things in your hands feels different. And I think that's just like, you know, part of me, and I think it always will be.
What's your kind of like normal schedule like if you have a project, like when do you usually like to work throughout the day?
Yeah, so I normally wake up around 7:30.
That's early.
Yeah. I don't sleep very long. I can't sleep past, like I've never slept in really. My body just wakes up.
Okay.
early. I don't know what's going on, but so I normally wake up around 7:30, and I like to have a really long, slow morning where like, and I've started to make a rule, like, don't check your email until not like 9:30. Like, and just because I need a really slow start to the day, I cannot just like wake up and jump into real life. So I normally get up around 7:30. I'll try and go for a hike, and that normally takes an hour. And then I come back, shower, and then I normally start working around 10. And I'll work until 10 o'clock at night. Kind of all day. Sometimes 11, 12, depending how.
But kind of slow in here and there.
Yeah, slow, and then I'll probably have like an errand to run or like a call to take or something like that, and I take just like micro breaks, like 20-30 minutes, and I get anxious if I'm like not at my desk and if I'm away from my supplies, and I actually need to work on that, the anxiety of being away from my stuff. I tried not to, when I worked as an employee, I tried not to have like the Slack and stuff on my phone, because I was like, I need at least like when I go to lunch, like they can't say anything, you know. And they'll be like, did you see the thing? And I'm like, no, I just got back. And they're like, well, can you look now? And I'm like, yeah, sure. You know, like it's nothing's ever as important as everything's times 10, like urgency, but it's usually not that big of a deal. Do you find that if you're working all the way like that big time chunk, even if it's, you know, more like slow or like you do a break and stuff, are you like just as productive like in the like 6 to 10 p.m. as you are from like the 10 to 2 or whatever? I work best in the morning, and in those morning hours, like I would say sometimes I will start at like 9, depending on how motivated I'm feeling that day. But yeah, I find like 9 through 2 is kind of like my favorite time to work, and when I feel the most productive and the most like awake. And I normally crash around 3, and sort of like I've been taking these like quick like 20-minute naps. Like I've really been enjoying that. And then I normally like will start, you know, I'll make another coffee around 3, and then I'll, you know, pick back up around maybe like 4:30 or so. But, and those hours, like the night hours, they're okay, but I do feel best like earlier in the day, in the morning. Yeah,
I agree. I found like my best is like my like deep work or whatever is like 10 to 2. Yeah. Like once I eat lunch, I'm done, you know, like totally. After that, like it's kind of like I try to save I try to do like the real shit in that morning chunk. That way later in the day, I can kind of maybe do the more like admin or like kind of stuff for fun, or like reply to shit, or kind of just like all the non-design stuff that goes with being like a design person. So like, because if I don't get the really important shit done early, it's going to be really hard for me to do it like later in the day when I already used up all my energy on like fucking email or some bullshit that's like less important. What kind of stuff keeps you like inspired every day to work that long?
To be totally honest, as of this last week or so, I feel pretty burnt out. And it's something I've been ignoring for weeks, but now I'm in the acceptance phase of being like, okay, this is happening again. Yeah. I'm burnt out again. So it's frankly been a little bit hard to get inspired lately, but I mean, I just listen to a lot of music, and that calms me down. And you know, I like to, like I said, like go to record stores and just spend hours in there and like look at all of these covers from all of these different time periods and like how they made that and what they were doing. And because covers used to be like so crazy and weird, and I miss that. Or sometimes I'll like go to the Broad, or you know, go to a museum or something.
That's how you say it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I thought it was the Broad.
I think it's Broad.
It sounds more professional.
Yeah. But I don't know. I honestly, like, I've been thinking about, I need to actually like take some time off because I never really have, because I just haven't really allowed myself to in the past year. But you have to like recharge yourself and get back into it. And every time I go to New York, I'm like inspired immediately. Like there's something about that city for me that I know a lot of people, like LA people, like don't like it and have opinions about it. But I just like, there's something about that city where like my brain feels on fire there. Like every time I go. So I've been thinking about going back there, and
that's cool.
I don't know. LA is like, it's a slower pace. It's I feel like you have to go looking for inspiration here. Whereas in New York, it feels like it's coming at me all of the time.
Yeah. It's like forced upon you.
Totally. But I will say, like, something I do actually daily that keeps me grounded and keeps me like somewhat inspired is like, I think something that I just realized in the last year or two that I do, and I didn't even realize I was doing it, was like any kind of room that I'm in or any street that I'm on, like I'm constantly looking at like every corner of everything, because I just want to, and I just realized in the last couple of years that I do this, just like the way that like type will be stretched on a sign, or the way that like concrete will be broken in the street and it's like filled with water, and then the sun hits it at the perfect angle, and it's like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And I think it's, and like the really mundane things inspire me, and like that's, and I draw a lot of inspiration from those things, and it also is like a way for me to practice being present and being in my surroundings, is to take notice of everything that's around me, like the color palette of a street. And like, I mean, it sounds so stupid when I say it, but it that the little shit like that is like what I love so much. Like the other day I was walking by this construction zone, and there was this huge piece of plastic just like blowing in the wind, and the sun was setting, and it was, I swear to God, I could have looked at it for 2 hours. It was so beautiful.
Like a jellyfish just floating around. Yeah, that's good. I've even found that when I sometimes, you know, when you go to a new place and you're like, this place is so cool, but it's only mainly because you're actually looking around. When you live in, like here, I don't look at shit enough because like it's like I know like where I'm going, and I have like the routes or whatever, so you're just kind of in it. But like even if you just move your head like up anywhere you're at, you're like, whoa, look at all these buildings and all this stuff. Like I could be in a way more boring city than LA and probably like romanticize it more because I don't live there. And that's something I need to do more like in my normal like here, so that I still get that feeling. When that dude I was talking about earlier, Jackson, he's from New York, and a lot of people I know from there always like, they just like to talk about why it's like better, and they're like, yeah, New York's cool, you know, and like, but it's like I hate it because they make good points, like the whole like the public transit, and like the biggest thing he said that made me feel like it would be cool to be there is like, you're forced to interact with people you wouldn't normally do in LA. You know, like you live in Santa Monica, like you're never going to hang out with your friend in Silver Lake or whatever. And you're only in this 4 mile like world that can take you an hour to like go in a square. In New York, it's like, you're going to have to talk to this person that's like, maybe you don't like, or you do like, or randomly on the subway, different like races, different like cultures, and just like people doing entirely different things.
That's
in LA,
so
you can like
curate
your interactions too much, I think.
I agree with that. I was talking to a friend the other day about how I still like romanticize the subway system so much. And it's like, I will, when I'm there in New York, I'll just get on the train and like just ride all of the stops and like be in my notebooks and like writing down ideas and just watching people, listening to music. And it's like, it feels like I'm in a movie every time. Like I still have the most romantic relationship to the subway. And I worry like if I ever move to New York, which I do think I will do eventually, I worry if like the romance goes away and the inspiration that I was talking about, like if that dwindles.
Like it becomes like driving on the 101 or something.
Right.
Yeah. I can just picture you. It's like center composition and you're going through all the stops. It's all blurry and shit. Yeah. Like, we're just too much about cars here. That's like, I love cars. The Avril Lavigne
cover. That's exactly.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like, that same dude like was telling me like they had in the 80s, you know, the monorail in Disneyland? It's like,
no, I'm not familiar with
it's
Disneyland.
Like it's just they're like big, like light train thing that can take you around the whole thing or whatever. That company that built that, this is all like, I don't even know, maybe it's not fact check. This is what someone told me, but whatever. That company in the 80s was like, we want to build a system like that above ground for LA. Like all really good, like based off the London like underground tube or whatever, kind of like that, but above. And all the car companies like Ford and everyone was like, no way. And they like shut it down.
Yeah.
And the company that was going to build that was like, we'll do it for free. We just want the profits once it starts like becoming breaking even and profitable. And then like Ford and good old Chevy and all that were like, yeah, right. Like we're a car like place. And it's like to think, I wonder what it would have, if it actually would have been like 5 minutes, you know, from like the east side to West LA or whatever. But I guess that's not a good thing to think about because it's not going to happen. Yeah. They're all talking about upgrading the metro though when the Olympics comes here in 2028, I think, or 2026 or something.
Cool.
But I found California's like version of upgrading is now more people can come. So it's just like, it's all on to scale the same level of like busyness or congestion.
Right.
It doesn't usually really help.
Yeah.
One thing I really want to ask you about that, how I found out about your work was through all the like usual project shit.
Oh, Usal.
There you go. I don't know how to say it.
No, it's okay.
You know, you only ever read stuff.
Totally.
Can you like kind of explain more what that is and like what you do with that project? Because it looks really like beautiful, but I know you do like they do like the gear swaps and all that shit, but I'm still kind of like unfamiliar with what the whole thing is.
Yeah. So, my friend Mike, who I met through Deb Never, who I also do all of her design stuff. So she's cool. He was her manager for a long time. And he recently, only like last year, I want to say November, we were hanging out and he was telling me about this new thing he wanted to do and this project where he really wanted to, and also like he's been in the music industry for a long time and I think he was just falling out of love with it and like really wanted to follow what felt true to him. And I think he's always been like a nature boy at heart.
Yeah.
And so, so he was just telling me about how like people would always hit him up about like, where should I go this weekend? What should I do this weekend? Like where do I need to hike? Like where, you know, that kind of thing. So he really wanted to create this like resource specifically for LA people to get them out of the city and show them different parts and accessible parts of California that aren't that far of a drive or like and just like expose people and really create a safe space for like women and black and brown people of color who like have been excluded from the nature conversation like forever and like it's been like a white dominated thing like most things and so he and I was like so excited about the idea because when somebody creates something that you also believe in, I was like, hell yeah, of course I'll do this. So he basically just asked me to do all of the design work and we started with the logo and to the color palettes and then branding stuff and merch stuff and it's really grown and I'm really proud of him and he's really like done it from the ground up and I've just kind of been on the ride and just doing all of the design work.
You're like the art director almost for like the brand or whatever.
That's what he calls me. I have trouble with art director.
Because then you almost assume then you're not designing, huh?
Well, not even that. It's just like people are so quick to put that in their bio and like throw that term around. I don't even know what it means anymore. But Yes, I guess I would say that's what he calls me. So I guess I'll take it. But
because that stuff's cool, and you could tell that there's like, you almost assume it's not what it is because stuff like that isn't ever look cool. It's like national park vibe, like
totally
very government like looking, and it looks so nice. You're almost like, is this like a streetwear brand or like what is this? You know?
Yeah.
I really liked the pamphlets, like just the little like brochures, because they still feel like someone in that world, a familiarity where it's like kind of like, look at this like mushroom or whatever, and it's very like travel guide-esque, like sciencey, but it's also like a contemporary like design touch where someone that could just be like, this is a cool piece of thing to look at.
Right.
Like, I'll just keep this for the design, and then there's the people that'll actually keep it as like a map or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So so every week there's a new there's like a whole calendar you can look at, but there's these events happening every week, and some of them have been like foraging expeditions. So sometimes it'll be like a foraging expedition. It'll be a guide that'll take a group hiking, and that's kind of where the purpose of those brochures started, was to just be this like physical thing that you could hand out to the people who are wanting to experience that trip, or that to like learn something. And
do you go on this stuff ever?
I've done a cooking class, I've done a ceramics class, and I think that's it. I really should do more, but I don't know. I still have never been camping,
really,
ever once. I just never was really like interested in like being in the woods at night. I'm good, but but the beauty of Usal, it's like, it's really shown me like how important nature is, and which I knew, but it was like reassuring to see like what it does for people, and so now I am more interested in like getting out there, and I have like lifetime Usal membership, so
hopefully
I can do those things.
I found with outdoor stuff, like, even though I'm not the most outdoors person, I like doing the extreme version of that. So like I've done backpacking, and I really like that versus like the camping where you still have like a car there, and like very like, or glamping or whatever. You would think I'd like that more because I'm not necessarily outdoors, but it feels like, why aren't I just at a house? Because we have like an iPad, or whatever. With the backpacking, it's cool to like feel free of like not being restricted to somewhere. Like if everyone wants to put all their shit back in their pack, you can walk somewhere else, and that's really cool.
I would go backpacking. That seems like a beautiful experience.
It's fun, and in California, the weather's so nice. Like we do it in we've done it in hammocks. We don't even have tents, so you like, and you can like stack the hammocks where it's like bunk beds. So you find like 2 trees, and everyone's like this, and like the person that's on the top has to climb up to the next one to get to the top. But like, it's really cool. Like, you still got to have that bug net for all those mosquitoes, but it's really nice to like, you feel safe in that like cocoon, but you're like outside more than a tent. Like you're straight up just hanging in like the woods, but like, it's so like, the sensation of being like wrapped in that little thing, it like almost makes it feel like you're good. Like even if a bear cave or some shit, like they're just going to leave you alone. But I think design and like a lot of creatives could all benefit from doing more of that stuff, because it's like, it feels like a chore sometimes to do like outdoor stuff when other people are like, this is my favorite thing ever. But with the Deb Never stuff, I was looking, you've done a lot of stuff I saw for them. I seen them play in Berkeley with like Deej, and they opened for like Little B, and that was really cool. It was like the We Did It anniversary thing, and I didn't know who she was until he like brought her out when they were dropping like some songs together. I was like, oh, this shit's cool. But how did you get connected with all that? Because I saw in your portfolio a lot of it is stuff for her. Yeah,
she's the homie. She's the best. I actually credit her for like even being able to freelance, because she was the first bigger artist that project I got, because I met a photographer just through Instagram, and we became, and now we're best friends. Me and this photographer, her name's Angela Riccardi. She makes amazing things. And
shout out Angela.
Yeah, so we connected on Instagram a couple years ago now, maybe one. I have no memory anymore.
It's all blur.
Yeah, and so like it was so last minute, but like she was like, "Oh, I just got this Deb Never thing. Do you want to do a single cover?" Which was for Sorry, which
and she was shooting.
Yeah, that would have been last year. Cool. And yeah, so that was the first thing I did for her, and then did a couple posters, and then I was living right outside of DC at the time, and I was in a really like dark period of my life, and really struggling with like this was when I was like at a 9-to-5 studio job, and I was really just unhappy with my life. And because after graduating college, I thought I wanted to go to a design studio and work in that kind of environment. Same. And then I did it, and I was like, oh, this is not for me. Yeah. And it was just a challenging work environment anyway. But anyways, so like I was in this really weird period of time, and I started to like freelance and do my 9-to-5. So I would work 9-to-5 and then come home and like freelance and until like midnight or whatever. And then so that's when I was introduced to like working with Deb, and then she was shooting a video for Disassociate, and I flew to LA to come to the video shoot.
Dope.
And I was here for a week, and I kind of did it as like a test run to see if I wanted to move back to LA. Because when I graduated college from Otis, I actually hated LA, and I thought I would never come back. And I was like, I'm good. I totally think it's because of the area I was in and like where I was living. I didn't understand how vast LA was at the time, but I think that's why I hated LA. And I was like, am I really considering moving back? Because Angela, who I talked about, like she lived here, was introducing me to all these creatives and stylists and photographers, and everyone seemed to be living here. And I was like, okay, I think like maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. And then Deb told me, she was like, seriously, like everything you send me like is phenomenal, and I want you to do everything for me like from now on. And I was like, guess I'm moving to LA, like like, you know.
That's cool.
And I'm really glad I did. It was really scary, and I wasn't sure if I should, and but I think it was definitely the right thing to do. And so ever since then, I've been doing everything for Deb ever since, and I'm really excited. I've been working on a bunch of creative directing and writing some video treatments right now and stuff coming up, and I'm really excited about that, and been talking to her about, you know, this next kind of like world we want to create, and so coming soon, more stuff.
Are you planning on trying to like kind of expand in that way where you do a lot more than just designing, like kind of world building, or like overall like more direction and things?
You know, I really don't know. I've been so content with being mainly design focused. I don't really have interest in like learning code or like learning how to make websites, or I like creative direction stuff, but I also really value getting to just sit in a room with people and bounce ideas off of each other. I don't love being like the person that everybody looks to all of the time. It's like not comfortable for me. Like, and I prefer to just like, what do you think? What do you like? And then it's like, what about this? Because you're always going to think of something you didn't think of on your own when you're like discussing things with other people. And and so I like things to be more fluid and collaborative like that. Which makes me less inclined to do creative direction stuff. But I've talked to friends, and they're like, no, it's going to happen. Like you're going to start. I mean, I've done it in little ways. I've done it a little bit. But I'm actually really excited to do it for Deb. And I think it's funny, like I've been thinking less about like that stuff and more of like doing personal work again and stuff that isn't client focused, because I've just been going hard with the client work for the past year, and I felt fulfilled in it, and I haven't really thought about doing personal work until like these past 2 or 3 weeks actually.
Yeah.
Because I think like I haven't made something for myself that I really connected to since I think like my senior thesis project in college. Because at the time I experienced a death in the family, and it was the first time I had really experienced death like from somebody I had spent my life with and was that close to, and the only way I like knew how to deal with it was to like make work about it. And so that's what I did my senior thesis. I did a publication. It was like a book that I made.
That's cool.
Which actually was like my love in college. I loved book design. That was my favorite thing. And I don't get to do it enough anymore. But, and so, yeah, that is, making work about experiences and, the human experience. That's just how I can process anything. Or I guess it's like, I think it's the most beneficial way for me to process those things.
Yeah.
And I miss connecting to a project like that. I mean, it was hard because I was literally for 9 months working on one project that was just about death. So every day you would just wake up thinking about death, which is not great, but I really do think I had to go through that. So like for that book, I interviewed grief counselors, and I wrote some personal essays, and I took all the photos, designed the book, sewed the book by hand, and it really felt like it was of me.
That's dope.
But now when I look back at it, there's so much I would change because...
that's a good thing though. I always realize.
Now I've been thinking of like, why do I want to make personal work again? Like, what is this feeling? And I had a friend say to me, like, she had worked with a very seasoned artist who was like older and had been in the field for a long time, and he said, save the personal work for when you're going through a crisis. And I think that's exactly like what I do and like what I agree with. And so I think like right now I'm going through like a little bit of a crisis, maybe like 70%, not like full crisis yet, but and I think that's kind of like why I've been thinking more about doing a personal project recently. And I've just been interested in working through different themes of like attachment versus detachment, loss, heartbreak, unrequited love, like all of these things that seem to be themes in my life that keep showing up. And I was like, I've never really made work about this. Like this could be interesting to explore. So I think if anything, I really would love to dive back into the personal stuff, even if it's not for everyone. But those kinds of themes, like people may hear that and think that's so trivial or like not interesting. But again, like it's like the mundane, like human experience, like that's what I'm interested in, because there's so many perspectives that come out of everybody's point of view. And and I've also been thinking of like, now that I'm in the music industry and I have all of these friends who work in the music industry, I really would love to like create more of a dialogue around the intersection between designers and the music industry and the things that we face on a daily basis, the challenges we have, and like really like pulling back the curtain on things like people may not even realize are happening, like what designers would like to see change within the music industry, and like really just like sit down with some of my friends like in a real way and have like a real discussion about these things, and shedding light on like the things that we have, the experiences we've been through, and like how to make it better, because I don't know, it's like being a kid, you look at the music industry and as this like glittery, shiny, romantic thing that you like would die to be a part of, and then you're in it and it's like everything else, it's right. You know, and so I think it'd be interesting to sit down and talk to all of these designers who work in the same space as I do and hear about those things. But I don't know, I also am like, I don't know how much interest there is, how much of an audience there is for that. It's a little specific, like design meets music industry. And
I've been surprised that there's an interest in like practically anything. Totally. Anything that exists on the internet, there's probably a potential fan base of like 100,000 people almost.
Right
So
that's true. And I also worry about it skewing negative. Like I don't want to discourage anyone from not pursuing something, like, and not like if there was some starting graphic designer who like wanted to be in the music industry and reading this thing right that's talking about the difficulties of it, if that would discourage them from like moving forward. But I need to figure out the tone and like how I want to do it and the frame of it. But I would love to have that dialogue, but I think I want to be encouraging, because I think like I wouldn't have my life any other way. Like I'm so grateful to be in with all of the difficulties that it has. I really wouldn't change it. And I think that's kind of like the overall message I would probably like to have, but also being honest and just being real about, like how hard it is to just get paid sometimes, like, and how unfair and how it's so people like can treat you like a machine and they don't really care about your feelings, and like there's like this lack of respect sometimes, and I don't know, so I'm trying to figure out like what sorry, I feel like I've been talking so much.
No, you're good.
I'm just trying to figure out like
how to package it or whatever.
Yeah, like how to approach it, and it may take a year or two to make, but
that sounds cool though. And I think that's kind of why I started doing like, not solely, but so I have like the YouTube channel, which has a lot of like stuff that I just create, like content or whatever, like videos either that are more like talking head style about like this kind of stuff, or like, freelancing, contract shit. And then I also have videos that are like design, like process, and kind of just not necessarily tutorials, but me going through like how I would do this and things. Right. And then I have the interviews like this, and all of them together like kind of hit on different like value props that I want to like give people. But collectively, it's like, if you want to do like design and stuff, like I wish I had all this to look at. That's kind of my approach to it. Like I would have loved to hear you like tell me this stuff when I was in school, and like hear like someone else be me talking to you and listen to it, because everything when I was like in school or younger, like it was very like, there was like 5 people you could listen to, and it was like this big, like if they weren't at like the Adobe Max like type shit, then it's like you wouldn't really hear about them. And I want to bring it down to a more like, I guess, like I want to talk to people that are working with all these big artists like you, and then maybe someone that just does shit online, or someone that barely is getting started, or someone that's like retired, whatever. Right. Like, so you have a full breadth of experiences. And like, I found that being still in it, like trying to still pursue my freelance like practice and balance it with this stuff, is what I need to continue to make this stuff. Cause I can't get too far away from it, cause then it's almost like I would feel like I wouldn't have the right to speak on it if I'm not actually still like within it. Like we were talking about with the professors, like when it's someone that's still working, they have a lot more like on the ground viewpoint of what's still going on. Where I felt like some of my professors were like, they didn't even know about like UI design or anything. They were like, what is that? Like we're still teaching, like they're just like, you have to like only use like these fonts, and like classic, like old shit. And I don't know what my point was, but yeah, that's what it was kind of getting at with this stuff.
Is there like anything you're interested in doing more right now? Like more creative direction or personal work, or?
I'm not sure. Cause like I found that I do a really good job of always making personal work, but I could do a better job at building it out into a bigger thing rather than like I'm always just making things that are just these things, then it's the next thing. That's it's like it's, you know, for lack of a better word, just like a poster or one collage or one this, rather than like, and I'll only go as far to the extent of making like a series of them. Yeah. And there's a thread aesthetically, but I don't know if there's a thread like with a message where it's like something that evokes enough of an emotional response. So I need to get better at the delaying the quick gratification of like just finishing something and putting it out for like the longer big reveal, you know, type thing. Yeah. Cause like the personal stuff's important. When I don't have a lot of clients, I try to fill all that time with just designing for fun or this stuff. Cause there's been times where I have like a client dry spell and like I could easily just not do anything, but I don't think that's good, cause then you like atrophy as a designer, I think. Yeah. So, but it seems like you're almost on you haven't had time to do that because you have had so much projects, right? From what you're saying. So that's like a really good problem though, to an extent, you know? Like, it's bad for maybe like long-term sustainability. Yeah. Like you said, you're kind of burning out, but you know, other people, the grass is always greener, you know? When you don't have clients, you're like, damn, look at this person's working on this. That's so cool. I want to do that. And then you're busy and you're like, I hate clients or whatever. Yeah. So I don't know. But one of the last things I wanted to ask you before we finish up is you've worked on a lot of cool stuff and it seems like you have some cool plans for personal projects. But in terms of like client work or like a specific brand or project or person, is there anyone that you would want to, like your dream person to work with or collaborate with?
I've thought about this a lot actually. But you know, it's funny, like it's one of those things where I don't want to get them because I don't want to risk letting them down or or it going bad, or just absolutely freaking out and not knowing how to do it. But I mean, I think my number one has to be Lady Gaga. I mean, she's like, she's meant, or like her and Solange, and and also have a soft spot for like Caroline Polachek. So those three, they're like very different artists, but
they're on like different tiers.
Yeah, totally. But like, I just would, I mean, Lady Gaga means so much to so many people, but like I remember like when she first came out and like how crazy, like how much I connected to like the art she was making, like not like more so her first record, but like more like when she got like darker and like put out like Bad Romance and like started doing like the Born This Way, like that kind of like gritty like New York, and like and she works with like Nick Knight, who is fucking amazing, and and so yeah, I think that's my number one. And Solange, I'm just like, I can't even tell you how much I love her, and like and but also, you know what, also like Janet Jackson, like that would be so crazy because of
the
like
OG path.
Yeah, like because of like how much like my mom would play her like growing up, and like and she's like still like working and like doing stuff, and so it is possible, maybe, but it would be really crazy to get to work with somebody who has like transcended all of these decades and years, and
for real.
And so I think that's
how I feel like how Juicy J has been. I'm like, how did he go from like 3-6 Mafia to like working with people like Amigos and shit? Like some of these artists are able to like switch so well and not make it feel like forced, you know? Sometimes it's like you gotta go home like your dad or whatever, like it feels forced, but some people are really good at, it's just a testament to their like versatility or whatever. Yeah. I'd be so scared to work for Lady Gaga because how good the stuff is from like Travis Brothers and everything. It's like, I'd be like, they're killing what could I do that's better? Like this shit's so cool, you know? Right. But yeah, that'd be like a really fun client. Well, other than that, is there anything you want to plug or promote or anything before we get out of here?
I don't think so.
Cool. Well, it was really nice to meet you, and I appreciate you coming on. And everyone, check out Chase Shewbridge on everything, Instagram, portfolio, and all that. And we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.